Gute Woche, freiliche Woche. Mr. Shem, tonight I want to share with you a story about the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab, um, among all of our Rebbeim, we know more about the Rebbe Rashab's connection to Gan Eden, to heaven, and previous generations and conversations between souls in heaven on this on earth and in heaven, more than we know about other Rebbeim. It could be because the Rebbe Rashab shared this with the previous Rebbe, and the previous Rebbe also printed it. So it could be that's how we know. But there's incredible amount of stories of the Rebbe Rashab um, in his visits to heaven and being visited by souls from heaven. So this story I'm going to share with you comes also from the previous Rebbe's diary. The previous Rebbe said that in the year, oops, the previous Rebbe writes that in the year Tav Kuf, Tav Reish Nun Vav, he would have a study session with his father, and they were learning the second Kunshas Achron in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe speaks about people who study Torah and they don't arouse a love for Hashem in their hearts before they study Torah. Just study Torah with their hidden love for Hashem they have in their hearts without it being aroused up in inspiration, just their natural love for Hashem. So Alter Rebbe writes in that section in Tanya that studying Torah without any inspiration isn't worse than a child studying Torah. And the just like the angels elevate the children's study of Torah to Atzilus, to the highest world, the world of Atzilus, so too, in a similar way, this happens by every Jew studying Torah. The angels elevate the study of Torah of every Jew, even if it's not done for the highest, even if it's not done with right intentions, right meaning and feeling. That's what the previous Rebbe learned with his father. So the previous Rebbe said this was on 11 o'clock at night, on the 3rd of Kislev, on Wednesday night. My father told me that the Alter Rebbe's words, that the study of Torah of children whose breath has no sin, there's two explanations of the words breath and has no sin. An explanation, the Rebbe Rashab told the previous Rebbe that I'm going to share with you, comes from something that I heard directly from the Baal Shemtov. When I visited the Baal Shemtov in Mezhebush, by his Ohel, this explanation I'm going to share with you comes from that visit to the Baal Shemtov. The Baal Shemtov said that the simple meaning of children having a breath without sin is that the children are so young, they're before the age of bar mitzvah and bas mitzvah, before the age of where they're responsible for their actions, and therefore their breath has no sin. But a deeper meaning is that when a child says the words Kometz Alepha, Kometz Beis Ba, and he says this, and he knows, and he believes that this is that the letters of the Torah and the vowels were given to us by Moshe Rabbeinu, by Moses at Mount Sinai, and the child recites those words with a sincerity, with a simple faith in Hashem, which is planted in part of his heart. So that feeling, that simple faith in Hashem, causes a storm, a tumult in all the worlds, and it elicits a unity, a unity of all the worlds with Hashem in a higher way than before. That study of Torah of a child with his sincerity, that has such an impact. And so based on this, said the Rebbe Rashab, the previous Rebbe, this also applies to adults as well. If an adult also studies Torah in that same way with simple faith, that also has that that similar effect. Doesn't have to be a child, as long as he can be a simple person and he's studying Torah, especially with a simple faith, it has a similar effect. So that's what the Rebbe Rashab told the previous Rebbe. And he said to the previous Rebbe that this explanation that he has about those words comes from a um, a visit, a story that he heard from Baal Shemtov. How do you hear a story from Baal Shemtov? The Rashab told the previous Rebbe that at the beginning of the year, Taf Reish Mem Hey, in 1885, he had a very severe health problem. And because of this, the doctor suggested that he go to Vienna, to various health spas in Vienna. So before he went to travel to Vienna, he visited the ohel of his father and his grandfather, the Rebbe Marash and Tzemach Tzedek. And he told the previous Rebbe that my father told me that before I go to Vienna, I should stop off at the ohel of all the ohels in Yezhin, in Mezhebush, in Nalipoli, and I should visit in Yezhin by the Mittler Rebbe, in Mezhebush by the Baal Shemtov, and in Anipol by the Mzitcher Magid. I should visit all of these tzaddikim before I go to Vienna. I should stop off there first and visit all of the oils of the Baal Shemtov and the Magid and the Mittler Rebbe, and and this is what he did. He said it was for 2 weeks that I went to the various oils of these tzaddikim, and in each oil and each of this during this entire 2 week period, there was such revelation of godliness, so much Torah and inspiration that was otherworldly, that it lifted me and inspired me for a 2 year period. He said I couldn't come back to myself after those 2 weeks. It was so touching and inspiring, and so much revelation of Hashem that I experienced. I couldn't come back to myself for 2 years. So he said from Tafresh Mem Hey and Tafresh Mem Vav until Tafresh Mem Zayin, he was living on a high from that experience. So this is all what the Rebbe Rashab is sharing with the previous Rebbe about his traveling to these ohels um, for those 2 weeks. I forgot to mention that the Rebbe Rashab told the previous Rebbe when they were studying that section in Tanya, which is based upon the Sefer Shari Yechudim, chapter 2, the Rebbe Rashab said he should also study Perek Hey of the same chapter 5 of that same book, and Pri Eitz Chaim and Eitz Chaim. This will help him deeply understand what the Rebbe Rashab wanted to teach the previous Rebbe about this section in Tanya. So the Rebbe Rashab told the previous Rebbe that that my father told me that in each ohel, when I visit the ohel, I should go and approach the ohel the way that my father told me in the year Tafresh Mem, in the year 1880, which the Rebbe Marash gave the Rebbe Rashab specific instructions of how to go to the ohel, and then he told him how there is a unique relationship, a unique approach to a tzaddik that you have a personal relationship with, especially if the tzaddik is a relative of yours. So that's all the Rebbe Rashab told the previous Rebbe. That all is something I will share with you in due time. But for right now, the Rebbe Rashab was telling him about what happened at the ohel of the Baal Shemtov specifically, and why this visit at the Baal Shemtov's ohel um, will give us insight into this phrase in Tanya, how the breath of children, their study of Torah, their breath is elevated until the world of Atzilus. Baal Shem Tov told the Rebbe Rashab that his father passed away when he was 5 years old. his father, Rebbe Eliezer, told him that he should not be afraid of anyone except for Hashem alone. And those words of his father to him, um, before he passed away, really touched him. And from that moment on, he was no longer afraid of anything. And he would go to visit fields and forests, and all of the caretakers of the orphans in the city of Mezhbush, where the Baal Shem Tov grew up, they all were very upset because he would go into these forests and go into these fields. To their chagrin of the caretakers, the Baal Shem Tov said they made it very difficult for me. I want to go there into these fields, but they made it really hard for me. I couldn't really go there because they made it hard, and so it was for 2 years. Um, this went on, and so the Baal Shem Tov said on one occasion he didn't make it out into the field, into a forest after praying the morning prayers. They didn't like the Baal Shem Tov sleeping there, but this was in the morning. He went out into the forest, deep in the forest, and he hears a voice of someone praying, and Baal Shem Tov walked towards the voice. And he said, I heard someone praying with such sweetness, with such passion, with such feeling that I never saw before in my life. And I hid in the bushes watching this man pray. And I was certain, said the Baal Shem Tov, that this person was one of the 36 hidden tzaddikim by whose merit the world exists. Forgot to mention before that when the Rebbe Rashab told the previous Rebbe about the power of the breath of children, he emphasized to him that what tzaddikim accomplish by studying Kabbalah and purifying their bodies and by the formulas discussed in the books of Kabbalah, children achieve the same thing with the simple sincerity of their words from their hearts when they recite the words of Torah. Anyway, so Baal Shem Tov is standing there at 7 years old watching this tzaddik pray. When the tzaddik finished praying, he took off his talis and tefillin, and then he began reciting Tehillim, again with a continued sweet voice. And then he began studying Torah. And when he finished studying Torah, he put together his things, he put it into a knapsack, put it over his shoulder, and took his walking stick and began to go. At that point, I greeted him. And the tzaddik told me, the Baal Shem Tov, he said, aren't you afraid to be here in the middle of the forest? And Baal Shem Tov told him that my father told me not to be afraid of anything. So the tzaddik said to the Baal Shem Tov, perhaps you are the child of Rebbe Eliezer? And Baal Shem Tov said, yeah, that was my father's name. So this hidden tzaddik took out a Gemara Psachim, and he began studying with the Baal Shem Tov. I don't know if Chassidus ever discusses why that was a tractate that the Baal Shem Tov decided to study with the Baal Shem Tov, the tractate about Pesach. I do know that there were certain Chassidim, like Nissen Nemenov, Alav Shalom, that he would spend his life studying specifically that tractate of Talmud, the tractate of Masechta Pesachim. Anyways, so the Baal Shem Tov started learning with this hidden tzaddik, the tractate of Pesachim, and when they finished learning, he went with his tzaddik. And they traveled together. The Baal Shem Tov said he didn't know where they were going or why they were going. But they would travel together, going through various villages. This hidden tzaddik that he was traveling with never accepted any donations from anyone. And they were traveling for a number of years. Until the tzaddik told the Baal Shem Tov that he's going to bring him to the home of a certain tzaddik, a mayor. And there, the mayor will teach the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, sure enough, went with the tzaddik to deep in the forest. There was this man, a mayor, who had this. People in the village didn't know who he was really. The mayor would come to the village and pray with them. He was known to be just a regular craftsman, a worker. They didn't know that he was really a tremendous Torah scholar. And he taught the Baal Shem Tov Torah and Kabbalah for several years. I forgot how many years it was. Anyway, so they're studying Torah for many, many years. And the Baal Shem Tov, by his 16th birthday, the Baal Shem Tov said that it's customary, as the Rebbe writes in the Hayom Yom, to spend some time alone on your birthday, spend some time in introspection, because the birthday is considered a miniature Yom Kippur. So Baal Shem Tov spent some time alone, and he was reciting psalms according to the Kabbalistic yichudim, the Kabbalistic meanings of Hashem's name in these specific psalms that he was reciting. So Baal Shem Tov is reciting these psalms, thinking about working very hard on the inner yichudim. Yichudim literally means to become one. Well, Shemtov was thinking about the names of Hashem and the various levels of oneness of Hashem while he was reciting these psalms. And suddenly the Baal Shem Tov saw Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet, and he was smiling. And Baal Shem Tov said this was the first time that he saw Elijah the prophet when he was by himself. He said, I saw Eliyahu Navi on other occasions, but I saw him with Rebbe, but I never saw him by myself. I didn't know why I saw him now, why I merited to see him now. And I also didn't know why he was smiling. But then Eliyahu Navi spoke. Elijah the prophet told the Baal Shem Tov, he said to him that you the Baal Shem Tov, you are working so hard in trying to understand the meanings of Hashem's name and the chapters of Psalms that you're reciting. However, said Eliyahu Navi, that the Baal Shem Tov was then staying at a certain inn that was owned by a man named Aaron Shlema, and his wife's name was Lata Rivka. Aaron Shlema's Lata Rivka had this interesting custom. Aaron Shlema would always say, "Blessed be he, and blessed be his name forever." Baruch Hu, Baruch Shmei Leilvad. And his wife would respond, Lata Rivka would respond, "Geloib zol zayin zayin heil genommen." In Yiddish, she would respond, "May his holy name be praised." And they would do this often. Always, this was their common refrain. So the Baal Shem Tov was staying there at that time, and Eliyahu Navi said to the Baal Shem Tov, "You're working so hard to understand the various yichudim, various spiritual incantations of Hashem's oneness in these chapters of Psalms. However, the recital of Aaron Shlema and Zlata Rivka, they achieve more than the great tzaddikim and the righteous people with their deep understanding of Hashem's oneness. They achieve more. They have more of an impact in heaven, and they achieve more than the great tzaddikim with their preparation, with their working so hard. In other words, it was the merit of their sincerity and purity of Zlata Rivka and Aaron Shlema that because of this, their words made such an impact. So Baal Shem Tov told the Rebbe Rashab that from that moment on, he made a decision, and he not just a decision, but it became his custom to travel around and ask people how they are, how they're feeling, what they're doing, because by a Jew reciting Baruch Hu, Baruch Shmei, thanking Hashem, Baruch Hashem, they cause such an impact in heaven. They cause such a light of Hashem to shine in all the worlds, and more, they bring blessing upon themselves. So the Rebbe Rashab told the previous Rebbe that was the source of this new interpretation of letter of Kunshas Achron, essay number 2 in Tanya, and when the Alter Rebbe speaks about the breath of children, doesn't just mean the breath of children. Havel she'ein beichet, the breath of those without sin, refers to people who are reciting words of Torah with sincerity. Their sincerity reaches the highest of worlds. But more, this is the children. They have no connection to the physicality of the world. They're coming from a higher world more recently. However, adults, because they are in touch with the physical, because they're in touch with the corporal, their sincerity, their purity has actually a greater effect because they're able to elevate the corporality and the coarseness of the world that they're engaged in. So the sincerity of a person studying Torah, believing the word that he's studying, believing these words come from God through Moshe Rabbeinu at Mount Sinai, and God is reciting the words with him. That simple faith of an adult has actually a greater effect than a child because the adult is involved in the corporality of the world, and therefore it brings Hashem's purity to the place of corporality, the place of coarseness. The Baal Shem Tov, when he would travel around and visit people, encouraging them to thank Hashem, The previous Rebbe said how he once went into a Prushim shtibel. He went into a synagogue of hermits, Jewish hermits, who spent all their time studying Torah and praying. And the Baal Shemtov approached one particular Torah genius who had spent 40 years, the previous Rebbe writes, without engaging in the world at all, just eating his bread and water at night and studying Torah for 40 years. Baal Shem Tov walks over to him and says to him, "How are you? How is your income? How's life? How's your health?" And this Torah genius ignored the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov would dress like a simple villager, and this Torah genius thought it was beneath his dignity, apparently, to respond to the Baal Shem Tov. So the Baal Shem Tov asked him again, "Hey, how's your health? How's your income?" Doesn't respond. So Baal Shem Tov said to this man, he said, you're withholding God's income. You're making God hungry. You're gonna make him leave the world. If he doesn't, you don't feed him soon." And now that he got the guy's attention, what is this guy talking about? He's making God hungry. God's gonna expire if I don't feed. You don't feed him fast. What are you talking about? So Baal Shem Tov explained. David HaMelech, King David, in Psalms tells us the following words. You Holy One, you sit upon the praises of the Jewish people, you sit upon the praises of Israel. Said the Baal Shem Tov, we, the Jewish people, we are supported by Hashem. But who supports Hashem, so to speak? This, David HaMelech tells us in Psalms, that Hashem is, so to speak, supported by our praise. But the words that the King David uses to describe Hashem's gratification, Hashem, so to speak, being supported by Hashem's appreciation for our praise, the word King David used was Hashem sits upon the praise of Israel. Because when a Jew praises Hashem, it works in a similar way that food does on the body. Just like when you eat food, it causes your soul to be attached to your body, and it affects the way you think, and affects your mood, and affects the way your body works, affects the way your physical animation is all impacted by the food that you eat. So too, the Baal Shem Tov says, the praise of a Jew to Hashem, when a Jew praises Hashem, it causes Hashem's light to be more attached to the world, more revealed in the world. And the Rebbe once said the story and he explained that the Baal Shem Tov interrupted the sage's study of Torah. Although you could think, well, he could bring Hashem's light to the world by studying Torah too. But nevertheless, the Baal Shem Tov interrupted him. He said, "No, I want to ask you not about how your learning is. I want to ask you how your health is. I want to ask you how your income is. Because in order to achieve Hashem's intent in creation, which is that the world itself should be a home for Hashem, it's necessary for us to praise Hashem about the physicality and the earthiness in our lives. That when we say to Hashem, thank you for our health, we draw Hashem's light into our health and in the physical world. When a Jew thanks Hashem for his income, he draws Hashem's blessing and light into his income. That's the meaning of the verse, you Holy One, you sit upon the praise of the Jewish people, that what causes Hashem's light, Hashem is beyond the world, Hashem is infinite, but what causes Hashem's infinite light to descend and to animate and to illuminate the world, it's a praise of the Jewish people. By Jew praising Hashem and thanking Hashem and blessing Hashem, he draws Hashem's infinite light into the world in a way that gives blessing and illuminates and inspires and affects the physicality of our lives. So when God forbid things aren't going well, when you thank Hashem for that specific thing what you do have, how your health is, what you do have in your health, you're actually bringing a blessing to your health. The greatest way to bring a blessing to your health is by thanking Hashem for your health. The greatest way to bring a blessing to your income is by thanking Hashem for what you do have. So the Baal Shem Tov also once, Shem Tov would go in the marketplace and he would gather people around and he would speak to men and women and children and he would tell them how much Hashem cherishes their prayers. On one occasion, Baal Shem Tov quoted the verse, Ashe tivkar tikrav lishkem mechatzerecha k'dei sheichelecha. And Baal Shem Tov explained the verse that I quoted incorrectly. There's a few titles for various holy places in heaven. There is what is called your courtyard. It is what is called your chamber. So Ashe Tivchar. How fortunate is a person who approaches your courtyards, approaches your chambers. So Baal Shemtov said the word Ashrei stands for the words Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba. That any Jew, Baal Shemtov says, when he says those words, may your name be blessed, he has an impact. He's changing something. He's bringing Hashem's light in the world. Any Jew. And so this was all part of what the previous Rebbe learned from his father about the meaning of Tanya. And the Rebbe Rashab emphasized the previous Rebbe in the name of the Baal Shem Tov that any Jew saying this with sincerity has this impact, especially someone who consistently thanks Hashem. That's what the Rebbe Rashab said. The Alter Rebbe also writes in Tanya that Moshe Rabbeinu uniquely had a incredible love for Hashem. The Zohar says that Moshe's love for Hashem, as Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya in chapter 44, is like a child loves his father and mother, and he would give everything he has to save his father. If his father was in a dungeon, father was in prison, the child will give everything he has to save his father. So Shemtov said that's a kind of love, the Alter writes in Tanya, the Zohar says that's kind of love that Moshe Rabbeinu had for Hashem. The Alter says, although this is the love of Moshe Rabbeinu, nevertheless, every Jew has something of that love because Moshe Rabbeinu's light shines on every Jew. And how do we access this love? The Alter says we have to consistently and constantly recite words of praise to Hashem. And the Alter says, even though it may seem it's external, may seem superficial, but nevertheless, the Alter says, it's not wondrous, it's not distant. And on the contrary, that by reciting words of praise to Hashem, you have it inside you anyways. By reciting words of praise constantly, that's how you make it more real to you. But in a similar way, that Rashab said that the impact you have in heaven also is much stronger by there being consistent words of saying Baruch Hashem and thank Hashem in a real way. Obviously, when it's heartfelt, it's sometimes we do something often, so then it loses its allure, it loses its magic. You don't feel the what you're really doing. But the Baal Shem Tov emphasized that the heartfelt, consistent praise of Juta Hashem, and the Alter says that by consistently repeating it, it makes it more heartfelt. This has an impact in heaven and brings Hashem's light to the physical world. This is the way. This is what Mashiach is about. Mashiach is about that our humanness, our earthiness, will be illuminated by Hashem's light. That we'll feel there are things that we do because we're supposed to do them. We're supposed to say what it says in the Siddur. We're supposed to pray in the morning, evening, and 3 times a day. We're supposed to recite the morning blessings. When someone asks you how you are, and you say, I feel good, thank Hashem, and you recognize it, and you feel that, it's not because you're supposed to say it. It's how you are, how you feel. In a way, that makes a home for Hashem more than the recital of prayers. Because the recital of prayers is not you, it's just what you're supposed to do. Then there's how you feel as a human being, how you actually operate, how you actually look at the world. So when you say Baruch Hashem and thank Hashem, looking at your life and really feeling this is coming from Hashem, that really fulfills God's intended creation in the greatest way. Hashem wants a home in the lowest realm. The lowest realm is not the Siddur. The lowest realm is not the synagogue. The lowest realm is how you naturally feel as a human being, your ego, your natural self, and when you feel there, that's from Hashem, and it's Hashem is giving it to you. That's what really is connected to the coming of Mashiach. That's really what really ushers in the coming of Mashiach. So as we are just this past Shabbos blessing the month of Nisan, which is approaching this Thursday, the Talmud says in Nisan we were redeemed. In Nisan we will be redeemed. The way to get in touch with this redemption, obviously we don't have to wait for then. The month of Adar is certainly a great month to be redeemed as well. It's a month we're supposed to add in joy, add in happiness. The Rebbe once told one young man who was having issue with being happy. The Rebbe told him, "Go to the window and throw out your negativity." And the boy looked at the Rebbe, this yeshiva student. What do you mean, go to the window and throw out my negativity? He said, "Go to the window, go to the window, and throw out the negativity." So finally, he walks over to the window in the Rebbe's room, and he just thought of letting go of his negativity. And I don't know exactly what the Rebbe meant, but I think that the Rebbe wanted him to realize that his negativity wasn't him. Is looking at the world in this melancholy way. It's not his soul. Melancholy, um, groaning and moaning is not the speech of the soul. The soul says Baruch Hashem, thank you Hashem. The soul feels the simcha of Adar. The soul feels the simcha of the coming Mashiach. So the way to get in touch with that is by saying Baruch Hashem, thanking Hashem. That's the way. And Chas Hashem Mashiach is delayed. It's also the way to invite God's blessings in your life and to prepare for the coming Mashiach, make it come faster. So Hashem should bless us all, that we should have a good avach, a freilich avach. We don't need to wait for the month of Nisan. Mashiach can come tonight, and we'll already be redeemed. Nisli Sin Legoil, Bekarev Mamish. A good avach as to Miriam, and Baruch, and Beryl, and Chaim Mendel, and Joshua, and Mendy, and Mr. YM. A good avach, a freilich avach.